I bet you sold out your brothers for some real shiny coin, huh? Yes, she offered me money. But she offered me something more important. Something you wouldn't understand. Freedom!
Welcome back, folks, to another installment of my Clone Wars retrospective reviews, where I'm offering up my thoughts towards the weekly installments and hopefully giving those that are rather apprehensive about starting a journey as taxing as 7 seasons and 132 episodes of content.
You had one, Joe. Just the one?
The assurances they need to begin this voyage, and I promise you, if you've yet to start watching the Clone Wars, you will not be wasting your time.
And that's the Winger Guarantee.
Now, to clarify something real quick, I'm doing these reviews in chronological order of the Clone Wars, and I will link the chronological order down below as set by those at Disney Star Wars. And yes, that means that some of you will have to put in the work and find the correct order of things. God, no! As really watching it any other way is, well...
That's not right!
I'm joking, somewhat. You're more than welcome to watch it however you choose, but the chronological order was designed to give you a more comprehensive understanding of events, as the series don't exactly play out in a concurrent way.
Good job.
Season 1, Episode 5 is a continuation of events from Season 3, Episode 1, for example. And another example would be that Season 3, Episode 3 is a setup for the 3-part arc of Season 1 that includes Episode 19, 20, and 21.
Cool.
This occurs a handful of times throughout the Clone Wars' first 3 seasons, but calms down somewhat thereafter, with it only happening maybe 2 or 3 times in the later seasons. But don't let that deter you, as it's easy to flick through now that we have Disney+. And imagine me, almost 10 years ago, having to keep changing the discs if I wanted to watch it in such a manner. Kids these days, they'll never know the struggles. Anyway though, let's get into this episode review for Season 1, Episode 16, titled The Hidden Enemy. This episode follows on maybe a day or so after the previous installment and follows clone leadership in Commander Cody, yep, the very same, and Captain Rex, who was originally introduced to audiences in the Clone Wars movie that came out several months before this episode ever aired, as they commence an investigation of a possible traitor in the clone army that's leaking Republic intel to the Separatists on world to give them the easy advantage. Firstly, I want to start off by saying that this is in my top 10 of Clone Wars episodes, as it quite simply has one of the best parts of the prequels, and that's the clones. D. Bradley Baker has without a doubt made the clones his role in his career, where it almost feels jarring when you go back to Revenge of the Sith or Attack of the Clones and you hear Tamira Morrison in the role.
Come on, when have I ever let you down?
Ah, yes. That Jedi has quite a reputation.
The individuality that he brings to each trooper is incredible. He makes them feel vastly unique from each other when you need to know their names, and whether it's under the helmet or without, you feel for the clones because of the emotion that he brings, and you steadily become more invested in their journeys. It's why, looking back, so many people feel bad for the likes of Cody, and with the events of Revenge of the Sith, Clone Wars, and Bad Batch, and a segment in Tales of the Jedi displaying the events of Order 66 from different perspectives and characters, you start to realise that the clones are just as much victims in this as the Jedi are. But episodes like this one do at times make me question whether these individual clones would have committed Order 66 with glee.
Where you going? Get back here!
The focus on the clones in this episode were certainly the highlight, with the shared plot being on Anakin and Obi-Wan being led away from the base to discover Asajj Ventress is actually keeping them distracted while Clone Sergeant Slick destroys much of the artillery in the base, thereby crippling the Republic's defensive efforts against the incoming wave of Separatist forces. This obviously aligns with how we begin the Clone Wars movie, with the Republic with barely any artillery to fight back. The plot involved with Anakin and Obi-Wan wasn't terrible by any stretch, and obviously offered up some context for their interactions in the movie, and certainly gave us a little more of an idea of the brotherhood that they both have, but just wasn't engaging enough for me, and did detract somewhat from the storyline with Cody and Rex that was certainly the best part of this episode. The mystery around which clone it was a story they could only really do once, and to set it in the early months of the war was perfect. Whether it was intended or not, the timing is perfect because the dissension in ranks and between alliances, or in this case being the Jedi and the clones, would normally occur long into something like the Clone War, but to see the conflict arise at the start of the war pretty much between a clone and his beliefs of following orders was a compelling concept, as he already separated himself from the rest with an understanding of having a conscience and individuality. This is the type of character study I enjoy watching. There becomes a wariness of the clones suddenly, which is likely what led to some of the Jedi unwilling to trust them after hearing of incidences like this. From my understanding at least, characters like Quinlan Vos and in Legends Ram Kota didn't trust the clones, so operated on their own fruition, and it saved them from the time of Order 66. There's always been free-thinking troopers in the clone army. Look at Rex, Hardcase, Fives, Waxer, Jesse, and the Bad Batch, for example, and a rare instance being Glitch from the Defenders of the Lost Temple novel, which is absolutely canon as it's the first canon appearance of Bo-Katan. But to see such a decision like this from Slick is very unique.
Ooh, that's interesting.
His reason for striking a blow for all clones, believing them to be indoctrinated and oppressed, is a fascinating insight to possibly many troopers in the clone army, and does raise a lot of questions for the general thought behind them, particularly if Slick was under the command of Anakin Skywalker, who is considered to be one of the kindest generals to lead the clone army. In my opinion, this was one of the best to come out of the first 2 seasons. You know, that grey period that everyone talks about. And whilst the general feeling is that season 1 and 2 are rather kiddish, there is a level of maturity in this episode that you won't find anywhere else in the first 2, that didn't begin to become the norm of the show until season 3 onward. I would highly recommend this episode to anybody who's wanted to test the waters with the Clone Wars, to gauge how they might feel about it before committing to 132 episodes.
That is why you fail.
It is absolutely a midpoint episode, but can carry itself on its own too. The story's strength is in its character studies. The depths that they give us with the clones in the Clone Wars series is exactly what the prequel movies needed to do, as the army of CGI mass on screen was only there for one purpose, and with one being given any genuine lines, left the clones feeling rather hollow as a concept, which is why no one cared. The Clone Wars did an incredible job making audiences care for the faceless army, by giving them identities and depth that was previously reserved for Jedis, politicians and Sith. That's going to do it for me though, everyone. Thank you for stopping by. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, drop a comment down below, let me know what you thought of this episode, and if there was anything in particular that I missed out, let me know. I'd love to have a discussion. Subscribe for more content, and until next time, take care, and may the Force be with you.